AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids when she had an important work dinner. She just uses me and thinks it's my duty even though they're not my children. I am 24 years old, working full-time at a pretty demanding job while also taking night classes for my master's degree. My days are packed from morning to night. I wake up at 6:30 a.m., commute to work, do a full day, rush home, grab a quick bite if I am lucky, and then either log into my online classes or head straight to campus for in-person seminars. When I am not in class, I am studying, writing papers, or trying to cram in group projects. My schedule is honestly a house of cards where one unexpected thing can bring the whole day crashing down. Despite this, I have been trying really hard to balance everything and not let anyone down. My sister, who is 30, has 2 little kids, my niece is 6 and my nephew is 4. I love them to pieces. I truly do. They are sweet, funny, and honestly 2 of the brightest parts of my life. However, my sister has developed this habit of treating me like her personal emergency babysitter. Over the past 3 months alone, I have babysat for her at least 15 times. And it is never planned in advance. It is always last minute, usually with just a couple of hours of notice. She will text me mid-afternoon saying her sitter cancelled or she has something she needs to do, and could I please watch the kids. She always promises it is, just this once, or only a couple of hours, but it happens so often it has basically become a pattern. I have missed study groups for her. I have had to reschedule work meetings. One time I even gave up a chance to attend a networking event for my field because she needed someone to watch the kids while she went out to a friend's birthday dinner. I try not to be resentful because I know parenting is hard, and it really does take a village, but the thing is, I never signed up to be part of her childcare plan, at least not as the first, second, and third option every time something goes wrong. Yesterday was the breaking point. It was around 4 p.m. when she texted me. She said her regular babysitter had cancelled and she needed me to watch the kids from 6 to 11 p.m. Here is the thing, I had a massive exam the next morning, one that counted for 40% of my final grade in one of my hardest courses. I had been preparing for it for weeks, but I still needed that evening to review everything, finish some practice problems, and make sure I really knew the material. I cannot afford to mess up this exam. Passing my classes is not just about school, it is about keeping my job, keeping my scholarship, and staying on track for the life I am working so hard to build. I told my sister that I was really sorry but I could not help her this time. I reminded her about the babysitting app one had shown her before, the one that helps find background-checked sitters on short notice. I even offered to resend the link. She immediately got upset. She said this was a really important work event and that I was the only person she trusted with her kids. She said she would not be comfortable leaving them with a stranger, and she needed me to step up for family. I apologized again but said no. I told her my exam was too important and I could not afford to risk it. I suggested maybe she could ask one of our cousins or neighbors, but she just said she had already tried everyone. She kept pressing, but I stayed firm. I could feel my stomach twisting with guilt even as I said no, but I knew if I gave in, I would be sitting there with flashcards in one hand, a crying toddler in the other, and my entire future on the line. My sister ended up missing her work event. Later that night, I started getting texts from my parents. They said I was selfish. They said I should have studied earlier so I could have been free to help. As if graduate school works like that, where you can just neatly package all your studying into some extra free hours and always be ahead of the game. As if I had not already been studying non-stop around the clock. My sister has not spoken to me since. She posted a vague status on Facebook about people who talk about loyalty but do not show it when it matters, and a bunch of her friends and even some extended family members commented things like, "Some people never grow up," and "Family should always come first." And here is the kicker. I found out through the grapevine that this important work event she needed to attend was actually a dinner with her boss where they were going to discuss a potential promotion. So it was not just a casual thing, it could have genuinely advanced her career. Knowing that makes me feel absolutely awful. Like maybe if I had just sucked it up and helped her, she could have gotten a huge step forward for herself and her kids. Maybe it really was that important. But then another part of me feels furious and exhausted. Because I have bent over backwards for her so many times. I have given up my own plans, put my own goals on hold, rearranged my life again and again without complaint because she needed me. I have said yes every single time until now. And the first, literally the very first, time I draw a boundary and say, I cannot do it, suddenly I am the villain. Suddenly I do not value family. Suddenly I am selfish and childish. It feels like there is no winning. If I always say yes, I kill myself trying to juggle everything and my own dreams get pushed further and further away. If I say no, even once, I am ungrateful and unreliable. I just do not know what I am supposed to do. I do not want to hurt my sister or make her life harder, but I am only one person. I am 24 years old, trying to build a future. I cannot always be the safety net. I feel terrible about the promotion thing. Truly, I do. But I also feel like it is so unfair that everyone is acting like I just sat around eating chips and watching TV while my sister's life fell apart. I was studying for an exam that could determine whether I pass or fail a critical course. I was trying to invest in my own future, just like she was trying to invest in hers. I keep going in circles about it in my head. Am I wrong for thinking it should not always fall on me to solve her emergencies? Am I an awful sister for choosing my exam over her dinner? Was I being selfish, or was I finally standing up for myself in a healthy way? Anyway, that is where I am right now. 100 missed calls, a family group chat full of guilt trips, a sister who will not speak to me, and an exam I barely managed to focus on because I felt so sick with guilt. AITA. Update 1. A few days after the explosion with my family, the dust had barely settled when I got a text from my sister, Rachel. It was surprisingly formal, almost like an email you would send to a coworker you did not particularly like. She said she wanted to inform me that her boss, Mr. Carter, had been understanding about her missing the dinner and had agreed to reschedule another meeting to discuss her promotion. When I first read that, a genuine wave of relief washed over me. Whatever anger and sadness I had been carrying since the blow-up seemed to loosen a little. I thought, maybe this nightmare would not end with permanent bitterness. Maybe things would still work out for her, and we could all move forward. But then I kept reading, and my heart started to sink. Rachel said this rescheduled dinner was my chance to make things right. She laid it out plainly, she expected me to babysit during her new dinner with Mr. Carter. She said that because my selfishness had almost cost her a career opportunity, I owed it to her to step up now. I just sat there for a few seconds, holding my phone, feeling my face grow hot and my stomach knot up. It was like nothing had changed. After everything, after months of rearranging my life at a moment's notice for her kids, after being vilified and dragged by my own family for the one time I put my own obligations first, she still believed my time belonged to her. She still believed that I should be available on command because she deemed her needs more important than mine. I took a deep breath. I thought about all the nights I stayed up late finishing papers because I had spent the evening babysitting her kids. I thought about the meetings I had cancelled, the professional opportunities one had quietly let go of, the stress migraines I had endured trying to make everything work. I thought about the guilt-trip text messages from our parents, the social media posts implying I was a terrible sister, the crushing weight of being everyone's punching bag. And I realized I would not, keep living like that. I texted her back calmly. I told her I was truly glad her boss was giving her another opportunity. I said I hoped it went well and that she got the promotion she deserved. But I also made it very clear that I would not be babysitting. I reminded her, in neutral, respectful language, that I had helped her many, many times in the past without complaint. I told her that I had my own obligations, and that I would not be putting my responsibilities aside again. To be helpful, I even resent her the link to the babysitting app one had recommended months ago, the one she had always brushed off because she did not trust strangers. Almost immediately, Rachel fired back a string of texts that practically crackled with rage through the screen. She said this situation was different because it was a second chance she almost did not get. She said I had to do this because it was my fault she missed the first dinner. She insisted that I owed her, that family loyalty meant stepping up even when it was inconvenient, that I was choosing to abandon her at a critical moment. It stung, badly. Not because I thought she was right, but because it was so clear that she saw me not as a full human being with my own life and goals and needs, but as an extension of herself, a tool she could use whenever it suited her. I sat there staring at her messages, feeling a slow, steady anger replace the guilt that had been eating me alive for days. I realized that Rachel was not going to change. She would keep taking and taking until there was nothing left of me if I let her. I responded simply that I was sorry she felt that way, but my answer was no. I said I hoped she would use the app or find another trusted friend or relative, but I would not be available. Then I put my phone on silent, closed my eyes for a moment, and just breathed. The silence from her side was deafening. No follow-up texts, no calls, no angry messages from my parents, at least not immediately. For a while, it was just me sitting in my tiny, cluttered apartment, feeling something I had not felt in a long time, peace. It was not easy. I still felt the gnawing guilt, the ache of knowing my sister thought I was a monster. But underneath it, there was also something steadier, something stronger. A feeling that I had, for once, chosen myself. Later that evening, my curiosity got the better of me and I peeked at her Facebook page. There was another vague post about people who only show up when it is easy, which I knew was aimed at me, but I refused to take the bait. I reminded myself that standing up for myself was not cruelty, no matter how loudly other people screamed that it was. Hours ticked by. I finished some of my homework, made a real dinner for the first time in days instead of just inhaling instant ramen over my laptop, and actually got a full night of sleep. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was not anxiously waiting for the next emergency to hijack my life. And you know what? The world did not end. Later that night, Rachel ended up hiring a babysitter from the app, someone named Amanda, and went to her rescheduled dinner. Update 2. Just when I thought the chaos was finally behind me and I could get back to my life without another emotional landmine exploding in my face, Rachel sent me another string of texts. This time, it was not begging, it was not guilt-tripping, it was demanding. She informed me, in a series of sharp, clipped messages, that I needed to reimburse her for the cost of the babysitter she hired. Apparently, Amanda, the sitter she found through the app one recommended, charged $120 for the evening. Honestly, that seemed completely reasonable to me. 5 hours with 2 small kids is a big job. Amanda was a professional, and professionals deserve fair pay. But in Rachel's mind, none of that mattered. She insisted that because she only had to hire Amanda in the first place due to my selfishness and refusal to help, I was financially responsible for the entire bill. She even said that if I refused to pay, she would get our parents involved and make sure everyone knew how petty and cruel I was being. I stared at the messages, feeling a mix of disbelief and a strange, weary amusement. It felt like no matter how many times I tried to draw a line, Rachel would just pick up a shovel and start digging right through it. I took a minute to cool down before responding because I knew if I answered while I was still furious, I might say something I would regret. When I did text back, I kept it short, calm, and brutally clear. I told her that her children are her responsibility, not mine. I reminded her that I had babysat for free dozens of times, hours and hours of unpaid labor that I had given freely out of love for her and her kids. I pointed out that finding professional childcare is a basic, expected part of being a working parent and that hiring a sitter was a cost she needed to plan for, just like any other expense. I finished by saying that I would not be sending her any money and that if she continued to harass me about it, I would seriously consider blocking her for my own peace of mind. I thought that might finally hammer the message home. I thought there was nothing else she could possibly say at that point. I was wrong. Rachel completely lost it. She sent message after message, paragraphs of pure rage, accusing me of abandoning family, of choosing money over love, of being cold-hearted and selfish. She ranted that she would never forget this betrayal, that she would remember who showed up and who did not when she was raising her kids alone. She said I was punishing her children for her mistakes, that I was turning my back on them too, not just her. She went so far as to say she no longer considered me a real sister. It was venomous and painful to read, but I kept my resolve. After a few minutes of just staring at the toxic words piling up on my screen, I muted her number. I did not block her, not yet, but I muted the notifications because I knew I could not keep letting her anger crash into my life like a wrecking ball every few hours. I needed to protect myself, even if it hurt. But of course, Rachel was not done. When she realized I was not responding, she went to our parents. It did not take long before I started receiving a fresh round of passive-aggressive messages from them. They did not directly mention the babysitting situation. Instead, they cloaked their disappointment in broad, sweeping statements about how younger generations only care about money and themselves, how family used to mean something, and how some people only think about their own convenience, not about loyalty or sacrifice. The irony was suffocating. I had sacrificed so much for Rachel, and the second I chose my own needs, I became the villain in their story. It was exhausting. Truly, bone-deep exhausting. There were moments when I second-guessed myself so hard that I felt physically ill. Was I being selfish? Was I really as terrible as they were all saying? I had to keep reminding myself, over and over, that needing boundaries does not make a person cruel. That refusing to be endlessly available does not erase all the times I had been there before. That loving my family did not mean setting myself on fire to keep them warm. In the days that followed, things stayed tense. My parents would send little jabs here and there, as if trying to shame me back into submission. Rachel continued to post vague, pitying statuses on Facebook, clearly hoping mutual friends and distant relatives would rally to her side. A few family members did reach out privately to ask what was going on, and when I explained my side, the dozens of free babysitting sessions, the last-minute demands, the impact on my education, some of them understood. Others just said, well, that is how family is, as if that were a good enough reason to accept being walked over forever. It was a crash course in a painful truth. Sometimes when you start enforcing healthy boundaries, the people who benefited from you having none will make you out to be the villain. They will paint your self-respect as betrayal, your independence as selfishness, your refusal to be exploited as cruelty. But I was tired of living under the crushing weight of everyone else's expectations. I was tired of being everyone's safety net while no one cared whether the net itself was fraying and snapping from the strain. I realized I could not control how Rachel or my parents or anyone else felt about my choices. I could only control whether I let guilt and fear make my decisions for me. For the first time in a long time, I chose myself. It did not feel triumphant. It did not feel good or glamorous or empowering in the way Instagram posts make it seem. It felt raw and lonely and scary. But somewhere deep underneath all that, it also felt right. I was learning the hard way that standing up for myself would not earn applause, but it was still necessary. Update 3. About a week after everything exploded, my parents insisted that Rachel and I come over for a family discussion at their house. They said it was important that we all sit down together and clear the air, whatever that was supposed to mean. I agreed, mostly because I was exhausted by the tension hanging over every text message and every strained phone call. It felt like this unspoken cloud hanging over all of us, and even though I was bracing for the worst, I thought at least it might be better to get everything out in the open. When we sat down in the living room, it was awkward from the start. The air was heavy and uncomfortable, like nobody really wanted to be there, but everyone was too stubborn to back out. My dad, Tom, tried to play mediator. He launched into this speech about how we were family, and how life was too short for grudges, and how he thought the best path forward was for both of us to apologize and move on. He framed it like this was some petty, childish argument between two equals, like we had both said hurtful things in the heat of the moment and now just needed to forgive and forget. I could feel my stomach twist, but I forced myself to stay still and listen. Rachel immediately jumped in, like she had been waiting for the perfect opening. She said she felt hurt, betrayed, and completely blindsided by me. She said she trusted me more than anyone else with her children, and that it was devastating to realize I was not as dependable as she thought. She went on about how stressful it had been trying to find last-minute childcare, how hard she worked to support her kids, and how much it hurt that I would not step up when she needed me most. I listened. I really listened. I let her get it all out without interrupting, even though every word felt like another tiny cut. When she was done, I took a deep breath and spoke as calmly as I could. I said, Rachel, I love you. I love your kids. I would do anything to see them happy and safe. But I am not your on-call babysitter. I have my own life, my own responsibilities, and my own future to worry about. I reminded her that I had helped her countless times before, not out of obligation but out of love, and that helping out sometimes was completely different from being expected to drop everything without warning every time there was an emergency. I told her that if she needed regular childcare support, she needed to plan for it and budget for it, just like any other parent. It was not my burden to carry. It never should have been. My mom, Linda, tried to jump in at that point. She said something about how we are family, and family helps each other, but I did not let her derail me. I said, being family does not mean allowing yourself to be used. It does not mean erasing your own needs and dreams to fix everyone else's emergencies. Being family should mean supporting each other in healthy, respectful ways, and part of that is respecting each other's boundaries. I said that I deserved to prioritize my education, my career, and my mental health without being treated like a villain or a bad sister. I said it clearly and steadily, without raising my voice, without letting the emotion shake me. Rachel looked furious. She accused me of not caring about her or her kids, of putting myself first at the expense of the people who loved me. She said I was selfish, cold, ungrateful. I sat there and let her rant without interrupting, because I knew arguing would get us nowhere. When she finally ran out of steam, I simply repeated that I loved her and her children, but that loving someone does not mean sacrificing yourself at every opportunity. Setting boundaries does not mean love disappears. It just means the relationship becomes healthier. In the end, there was no magical reconciliation. There was no big emotional breakthrough where we cried and hugged it out. Rachel stormed out of the house first, slamming the door hard enough that the windows rattled. My parents looked visibly uncomfortable. They mumbled something about how it would all blow over eventually but did not push further. I left shortly after, feeling drained to my bones but also strangely proud of myself. For once, I had said what needed to be said. I had not folded just to keep the peace. I had spoken up for myself. In the weeks that followed, Rachel and I had very limited contact. She kept her distance, and I respected that. Our relationship was strained, but at least it was no longer so lopsided. She eventually found a reliable part-time nanny to help with her childcare needs. Through my mom, I heard that the sitter she found, Amanda, had been great with the kids. There was even a grudging admission that maybe professional babysitters were not such a terrible idea after all. It was not an apology, not really, but it was something. Our relationship now is not perfect. There is still tension sometimes, an awkwardness that was not there before. But it is more balanced. She knows now that she cannot just expect me to be available whenever she snaps her fingers. She knows I have a life of my own, and while I am happy to be part of her support system when I can, I am not the entire system. As for me, I passed my exam with a 92%. I stayed on track in my program. I kept working full-time. I kept pushing forward with the life I have been fighting tooth and nail to build. Every time the guilt tried to creep back in, I reminded myself of the bigger picture. I reminded myself that protecting my own dreams and mental health was not selfish. It was necessary, it was survival. For once, I chose myself. And it made all the difference.